Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Bill Allen. I'm sitting in for Winston Chester today, which is Monday, December the 11th. We got a great show lined up for you. It should be interesting, I promise. Some really special guests. But I wanted to talk to you about the weather this morning, and after hours and hours of research, either that or Bill called me and told me about it, I found this site, Tides for Fishing. And it has, it starts off with the weather. It gives you kind of an all day thing. So, this morning early it's going to be about 43 at 8 a.m., going to probably a high of 52 today. And I'm going to kind of scroll down and go through some of this. UV's on there, but it also gives you the water temperature and the daily evolution of the water temperature. And you can see that it's at 67 and it doesn't change very much. There's several things on here. It gives us the tides. The low tide is at 10:49 a.m. and the high tide is at 6:50. And that's in Panama City. And there you got a graph to show you that. So as you go down, it's got the tidal coefficient, which I really have no idea what that is, but it talks about the heights between 0.2 feet and 0.7. This is a site you have to play with a little bit. I'm glad I went through the 10th grade that third time, or I'd have never figured this one out. But, as you're going through, and it's going to show you during the day that you've chosen, it's got the solar lunar activity, and which is basically not very good for Monday with very little tidal movement. But as you look at it and go down to, it gives you the major periods, which is 6:38 to 8:38 a.m. And it has the moon in a lunar transit, but that's really the only fish that it's showing. So a low activity, and then also 7:07 to 9:07. But this breaks it down too. That shows you that 6:38 to 8:38 and gives you the fish on it. So it's something that you have to play with a little bit and kind of learn how to use, but you choose it by the area, and it really is amazing what kind of information that you can get there. We want to look at the Apalachicola at Bluntstown is a whopping 1 foot, and it's level. We've been down there the past couple of weekends or so, and you really have to be very careful. That water's low. There's a lot of things that are in reach of the motor foot that haven't been before. So be very careful when you're running around. Choctawhatchee at Caryville is a different story. It's at 7.5 feet. It's gone up about 3 feet over the last 4 or 5 days just due to the rain that we've had. So it's Tides for Fishing, the number 4. Something you want to take a look at. It is really, really a very good site to figure out what's going on for just about any area that you want to go to. So we're going to take this quick break and come back with a couple of guests. Welcome back. Don't change the channel. This is not the Three Stooges. This is still Panhandle Outdoors. And I'm joined this morning by my buddy Bill Shields and my buddy Greg Brudnicki, and we so there's no telling what's liable to happen this morning. So what I've got is saltwater, freshwater, and I'll fish in the pool if you let me. So it doesn't matter. But over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've made some trout trips, made some catfish trips down the river, and a lot of interesting things going on. I want to start real quick by showing you a couple of pictures from about, a couple of weeks ago. The first one I was going to show you 4 flounder that we picked up when my brother-in-law Cliff was down here and my son Dalton, out around the pass in that area wandering around. Not a ton of fish, but we were gigging, of course, and but they were nice size, real nice size. You also have a picture of Jessica, Dalton's girlfriend, with her very first flounder, which is she's spoiled now. We almost lost her on that one, but
ready to buy a boat.
Yeah, she wants to buy, yeah, we almost lost her on that one. I think Dalton had her by the belt buckle while she was fighting him. But so anyway, you know, that's there's another night too where Dalton went and he was having a little bit of light trouble, and they only got 3 before they went out, but it was a pretty good night. It's kind of late. I think that there may be a few stragglers out there, but a lot of them, as some of you divers have been telling me, are out in, you know, 50, 60 foot of water, and I've got some good reports of people catching flounders. So I did make a trip to Appalach, and I've got some pictures of my brother-in-law Cliff and his son-in-law Taylor. We wound up working real hard and catching a couple of limits of fish, but it was really not that great. And there's a picture of Cliff laying on the back of my boat holding the rod up while we were trolling. So that's the effect of floundering 2 nights and fishing 2 all day. He was laying down trolling, you know, whatever works. So anyway, this colder weather that we've had, the river being low, we were just discussing that a few minutes ago. There's going to be an Apalachicola trip in all our futures here very shortly, because
it's time.
Yeah, it's when it gets right, when this water's down, it's a great time to go down there. Kind of an all-day affair, but a lot of fun. I'm kind of dominating this, trying to get that in this first little segment here. So we're going to come back and talk about kind of what's going on right now, the trips that we've had. This show, by the way, is a prequel, because the last weekend that we were down there, Winston filmed it, and I believe it's going to be, the show tomorrow is going to be film about the houseboat and you know, the basically the eating and the fish that we caught, so and how we caught them. So we'll go ahead and take this quick break, and we're going to come back with our 2 guests. All right, welcome back. Well, I want to start off by talking about a little bit of a safety issue that these heavy-duty side cutters are an essential in your tackle box.
They are now.
and basically, I carry it for 2 reasons. One is that I fish with these 2 guys, and the other is, you know, it's happened to me too. And I think, you know, Greg, your experience and mine was with trout.
Right.
No matter how careful, and you wound up with them a couple of times, right?
3 times last year.
I had the pliers and cut the first one out.
What happens when you're using those, and thank goodness the hooks are so sharp on some of those suspended lures and topwaters, but it's inadvertently, you know, especially if you're busy, and I'm trying to help my dad a lot of times take his fish off so I don't have to cut the hooks out of him. And in fact, that one particular time that I was with you,
right,
that's what I was doing, was taking his off. And it just, you know, slips, you're busy, and it can happen. And if you can stand pushing it through, which is what you need to do. Which
is what he did.
And I figured today on the show, we've got a plug over here, so I'm going to stick it through Bill.
It's just a small, just a small.
If you're squeamish,
we'll push
the other way.
We'll push it through Bill's hand.
It's the sacrifices that we make.
And Bill will show you just how it happens. But believe me, always, every time, and you will think about it, just be ultra careful. If you've got to take a rag, and then you don't want to get the hook caught in the rag, but still, when you're busy and you're catching fish, especially if you get into the smaller fish, because you usually have more of a problem taking off those smaller fish, and with those 6 different barbs, your chances are pretty good, because I did it 3 times last year, and I didn't get the fish that much. So,
yeah. I did it several years ago, and I actually had a rod sitting in the rod holder on the side of my console with a mirror lure in it. And as I was walking, we were scalloping, And as I walked by it, I buried it up in my calf of my leg. So I mean, you don't even have to be fishing to get one in you.
No,
I don't.
right.
I'm special. I can do it I don't even.
These are the same hooks that fish will attempt to hit and miss. But yet, if you drop it on the carpet or near your clothes, you have to cut it out. So
True.
yeah. And I mean, I was wading that time, had a nice trout, 2.5, 3 pounds. Got a hold of him. Rod in one hand, fish in the other, trying to put it up under my arm, and he made a move, and he buried 2 out of 3 of them there, and he was still on the other hook. So he's wiggling, I'm screaming by myself, and I'm trying to hold him and the rod and get to shore, and didn't have, I'm waiting, didn't have them with me, so I'm literally driving down the road with my hand out the window with the trout and a plug, trying to get to the walk-in clinic to get this done. So I don't ever go anywhere without them. But it's not just trout hooks, is it?
No. I had an experience opening weekend of squirrel season. We were at the houseboat. And long story short, I buried a catfish fin in that finger.
I've done it.
Right there. And I mean, it went through the joint and into the end of the bone. And that will set you free, brother. So, happened to have a pair of cutters, and I was by myself. My cousin and my buddy Dennis were probably a couple of 100 yards away from me, and I've got the fish, and he's got me, and I can't get rid of him. I've tried to pull him out. I can't pull him out. I can't get it out of there, and I don't want to let him go because he's trying to flop. And I've probably taken no less than a couple of thousand catfish off the hooks in my life.
I would say so.
And I've been stuck, in the hand, and always been able to pull them out. Always been able. Buddy, that one wasn't coming out, and I was in a mess. I finally got them to come down. Dennis got over in the boat with me and cut with a pair of wire dikes and cut the fin off, and we made the trip to the emergency room in Port St. Joe, and doctors got to yanking on it.
We got a couple of pictures of that, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you're squeamish, I wouldn't look at this one of them too good, but those things he
Barbs.
kept the barb, and they're wicked. And I started thinking about those 6 or 7 gaff tops that we pulled on the bush hooks that night. That would be a highly dangerous situation right there. Highly dangerous situation.
I got to the emergency room over there in St. Joe, which, by the way, they did a great job. But the doctor was a Pakistani. And he came in the room and he said, "Well, I understand you have a fish hook in you." I said, "No, sir. I have and I was showing him my finger. I said, I've got a fish fin in me." He said, "Oh, that's not good."
That's not exactly
good.
what you want to hear from your emergency room doctor.
Thank you very much.
He goes like this and runs out of the room.
And those fins are bad. I got stuck one time here, and my finger, and I was told, whenever that happens, take the slime from the catfish and put it on your
Off
finger.
the tail.
Wrong.
Yeah, that's a lie.
No.
That's just like soap. That's a lie.
Do not do that. I did that, and it got infected. I was sitting in a meeting with a doctor at the hospital. This was years ago, and my ring finger, it was swollen. He was looking at it. He said, "Oh my goodness." We ran into the emergency room, got the ring cutter, cut that off, and he ended up shooting it, lancing it, and I had a hole there. He said in a couple more days you'd have lost that finger. So the slime does not work, and don't let anybody fool you that you should do that, because
This is the fin that got me right here, and of course I know y'all can't see this on TV, but this thing is actually, if you hold it up in the light, it's like a saw blade. It's got probably 20 barbs on it running in the opposite direction, and when it sticks you, and of course you can't see it because there's a skin that grows over it. But once you take that skin off of it, it's just like a white bone. And I want to tell you, man, when that got in that bone, it wasn't backing out of there too easy. The doctor got the jerking on it with a pair of needle nose pliers, and he finally got it out of there.
Did numb the finger up first.
But now I will tell you this. I learned a little something while I was there. They immediately when I got there, and it was throbbing pretty good by the time I got there. She ran a pan of warm water. She says it's got to be at least 112 degrees. And I immediately put my hand, or when I put my hand in there, immediately it quit hurting. Immediately.
No betadine? No betadine?
Well, not at that point. Now, once he got it out of there, he probably used a whole bottle of betadine, just, flushing that thing out. But
yeah, that's what, when I got slashed by that stingray, when I was throwing the net, that's what they told me, put it in as hot of water as you can stand. It has to draw that poison out.
Well, it's
tough.
The way they explained it to me is there's some bacteria or whatever that has to do with the poison. The warm water neutralizes it, or the hot water, not warm water. Hot water has to be at least 112 degrees.
Well, it hurts.
Yeah, and now for a stingray, it's about 6 hours before it.
I was in there forever. So, all right, that was fun. Now we're going to come back and talk about what you can do right now to catch fish. Thanks. All right, welcome back. We finally got some cooler weather in here. Looks like it's going to last for a little while. So this is not the time to put your boat up for the winter.
No.
Okay. This is what we've been waiting on for a very long time. So outside of Appalachia, let's talk about trout first and the bay. What are you looking for, and what areas are you looking for now that it's cooler? We're staying in our bay.
Stability in the weather, enough water to get into any bio that's an offshoot of the West Bay or East Bay, and find the deepest spots inside the little sloughs and bios that come off the bay. And if the water, you'd like to have the water moving, but if you can get in there, if you find them, you're going to find fish. Right now, or just up until this point, the water in the bayous and the water in the bay has been about the same. Yeah. So they're scattered, and they don't gather up. So if you catch one, great. But in order to be consistent with it, if you find them when you're up in a bayou, you're probably going to do pretty well.
Yeah. Now, you like a rising or a falling tide best?
Moving. I'd rather have it. Here's the thing, a lot of times you get the higher tides at night, all right, or late in the afternoon, and that's when you can go, if you have no water in the morning, and it's better to, as long as it's moving, I like it 2 hours before or 2 hours after.
Yeah.
And
in a perfect world, I'd like to have it fall in at the right time.
Well, sure.
They're more predictable, when they pushed up, and the bait starts to, it's more predictable of where they may be coming out at and those kind of things. But right now, you put the top water away. Yeah. We are big fans of the Miradines and the Paul Browns, the suspended plugs, and also bouncing a gulp, shrimp, a havoc, those kind of things, right?
Slow it down.
And yeah.
And the thing is about when you're talking about the falling tide, you want to make sure, because it's happened to me, you get up in one of these bios and you get in, and if the water's falling, by the time you start to come out, you may be getting out and pushing your boat. So
now I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
In fact, the two of us,
when it's cold,
and it was cold, we had to evacuate the boat and push it across the. It got dark, and we were catching fish like crazy, and I wasn't exactly on the spot to get out. Let's put it that way. So we kind of ran out of water.
Yeah.
So,
Too dark to find the
fishing the lower end of the Appalachian and St. Mark's and all of that over there for speckled trout this time of year when they move up in the river. It's kind of interesting what you're talking about with the tides, because over there you've got 4 tides in a day.
Right.
And you can just about set your clock that when the tide starts moving out, if they're going to bite, that's when they're going to turn on. And the second that tide stops, you can just pack it in and go to the house unless the tide's going to change later on. But it's kind of interesting that in the bay, it has to do more with moving water. But the water's always moving in the river, or pretty much always moving in the river.
well, when you got the river, the tide, and a little breeze blowing all in the same direction.
Oh yeah, that's great.
Wearing them out time.
Whew, I love that. Really.
So what about up around Howard's Creek now? I mean, we're catfishing. And what are you looking for there? Let's go out and find something.
There again, I want moving water. I'm looking for I'm looking for water somewhere between 15 up there at least. In my experience, I'm looking for water between 15 and 20 feet deep. And for channel cats and white cats, for whatever reason, the bottom that you can find, if it's got those little mollusks on them, there'll be catfish there.
Yeah.
So
Hard to figure out, but
well, a lot of times when you're fishing, you'll for whatever reason you'll catch one of those mollusks. If that's there, remember that spot, because sooner or later there's going to be catfish there.
And earthworms.
Yeah, I like earthworms and a falling tide if I can get it. But if I don't have a falling tide, at least I want to be in moving water.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we do, adjust the weight to the current a little bit and cast it out, let it go down, sit there, and you just feel that little, almost like a super small flounder, that little tick on there where you have to time it. But another key is half a earthworm.
I love, fishing is.
Start from the torch side and leave a little bit wiggling on the end. Gotta leave something wiggling on the end. Well, listen, we've had a great time. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And I appreciate these guys coming in, as always, a wealth of knowledge about this area. So take some time today, do something good for somebody, and God bless you.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.